Good morning, everyone. My name's Ikra Bawani, and I'm the co-founder and cohort lead for Girls 2030, which is a program designed to create inclusivity and accessibility in the tech sector by making women the pioneers of tech. Today, I'm joined by my co-host Aliyah Patel, and welcome to the United Nations Global Compact Leaders Summit, which is 26 hours of leaders and change makers reshaping the narrative for this decade. This is our power session, and we are joined today by Sarah Cotti. Hi, Sarah, who is the CEO and co-founder of ImmuWatch. Also, for those of you that are posting on social media today, don't forget to use the hashtag UN Global Compact and Girls for Tech 2030. And don't forget to follow us on our Instagram, which is Girls for Tech 2030, and use our hashtag Tech's Not Just Boys in Check Shirts. Yeah, I'll head over onto Aliyah and she can tell you a bit more about our program.
Yeah, so through Girl 2030, our cohort, our main goal is to empower and support girls by making them future leaders for tomorrow. In the past 3 months since the launch of Girl 2030, we've learned so much, and we've had the wonderful opportunity of meeting these powerful hosts and inspiring young women through our monthly podcast series. And we want to motivate and carry on with our hard work and keep enforcing the idea that tech is not just for boys in check shirts. For me, working with strong-minded young women inspires me. And we have received so much solidarity and support for this project, and for young women who are actively participating in this product particularly. It's so inspirational to see and have them speak their minds and contribute actively towards this cause. We are creating a safe environment, which we've always wanted to see for our young women, and we are finally navigating our space, a safe space in which is open to all kinds of ideas from all kinds of women from all different backgrounds.
Yeah, I think that really gives a great overview of what Girl 2030 is all about and just inspiring girls everywhere. And I personally think that as a young 16-year-old girl myself, I felt that girls needed a place where they aren't afraid to just express their ideas and sort of be themselves. And I feel like through Girl 2030, all we want to do is just empower young girls and make them believe that they can be the future leaders of tomorrow. And I definitely believe that girls are the most influential, most transformational, and definitely the most untapped currency in our world today. I feel that through our interviews with female leaders, we've learned a lot about inspiring a curious generation and becoming role models, and realize that none of that is no longer determined by how much money there is to be made, but how much integrity and impact is going into the industry. And I think it's also about the passion, about paving the way for people to follow. And we've learned, I know I have, and I'm sure Aliyah has as well, we've learned that women in the industry make the first steps to step out of their comfort zone, to be ambitious and start creating real impactful change. So today we wanted to talk further about some of these themes and obviously hear from Sarah Cotti, mentor for Girls 2020 and co-founder of ImmuWatch, which is the first battery-powered watch that can track your menstrual cycle through without an app. So that is really cool, and I'm sure Sarah's going to talk a bit about that further. So Sarah, we just wanted to ask you a few questions and wanted to know about why Girl 2030 is so important for you and what really spoke to you about this program and wanted you to be part of this movement.
Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me today. It's been so great being on this program and working with you both. It's really inspiring. I think for me, it's great to be able to talk to young women and really understand what the status is. You know, you read a lot and you hear a lot about things that might be going on, but when you actually get to have deeper conversations, and you can really see where the gaps are. And I think as, you know, as a woman in tech myself, like then it really inspires me to think, okay, where do I need to keep making change, or how can I keep using the resources I have or where I am to then keep inspiring the younger generation. But I think at the baseline, it's like when you feel like, or when you're in a minority, like, you know, women in the tech sector, there's definitely still a minority. You can easily have this feeling that like you don't belong there. And that's not the case. But it's hard to think otherwise, because you're looking around and seeing like, oh, well, you know, maybe everyone else who's like me is doing something else. Like maybe I should be doing something else. So I think that first of all is just so important to increase that representation and exposure. And also I feel that it's really important to be broadening this idea of what tech is. So it's not just engineers, it's not just software engineers, you know, it's like we have this like real kind of stereotypical view of what a tech person is. And it's about changing that. And, you know, you don't just have to be a software engineer or a hardware engineer or kind of like being really technical like this. You can be a product designer, a product manager. And of course you can do the really technical side of things as well, but it's a really creative industry. And I think that that's like, it's important to keep broadening that, and also keep broadening the type of people who are in this sector.
No, definitely. And I think the fact that you said that when people think of tech, they just think of this like hardware, and it's really not about that. There's so many different avenues you can go. And obviously our whole aim of Girl 2030 is enforcing the idea that tech's not just boys in check shirts or that stereotypical view that everyone has. So yeah, I think that is something that obviously people have that, and we hopefully aim to change.
Yeah, definitely.
I think as well, like the whole, like you speaking about you being a minority in your industry, I think that's also the case for a lot of industries. We don't necessarily have a lot of representation for a lot of different kinds of women. And it's such a shame, but I feel like people like you are constantly paving the way for change. And for girls like me and Ikra and all of the other girls in our cohort, it's really inspiring to see that, oh, you're making change, you're offering us opportunities. And yeah, it's incredibly inspiring, and like we strive for that, you know?
Yeah, I think it's like, in a way it's never ending, you know, you kind of have to, and I don't mean in a bad way, I don't mean in a kind of depressing way, but it's the world is always constantly evolving, and I think like, yeah, maybe we're on a back foot, we have to kind of go double hard sometimes, which is not always like fun, but it's constant, you know. For like me and my generation, maybe we've had these type of struggles, and then for you guys, like you'll have the same to a different extent, and then there'll be some new things that then you kind of need to pioneer and push forward. And I think, yeah, for me it feels like it's been the mystique around it. For me, that seems like it's been one of the bigger things to try and break through of this whole concept. And I think that's also why the program speaks to me so much, because it is this stereotype that I've realized isn't true from kind of entering into the tech industry, not coming from a technical background. It was, you know, so intimidating in that sense, and really realizing that it's not so, I don't know, it's not so like out of touch as maybe we think it is. Like it is achievable, and there is a space for everyone. But I never thought that was the case.
No, we can understand that. I think we'd like to hear a bit more now about your journey, and how things have kind of changed for girls and young women over the years, and what we need to do to create more of an impact.
Yeah, I think programs like this are always such a great start. Having the girls at the forefront, you know, you guys are the ones who are affected and who are the future. So I think it's always so important to have you take the lead and really like pushing forward this agenda. Mm-hmm. And for me, I didn't really like know what engineering was until I went to university. And I just met other people who were doing engineering and then like started asking what it was. And I think like, you know, to my point before, it was really that aspect of it, expanding it. And I've come into tech much later. I was not working in this sector before, so it was always like a little bit scary. But it's really shown me how achievable it is. I mean, it was like learning another language, you know. I really had to kind of go from beginning, learn what words to say, learn what all the components mean. How do you even the product cycle, you know, how you talk about the product at different stages of the cycle, and like learning how to read basic code and you know, these like operating flow diagrams and stuff like this. It was all like a new language, but it's all achievable. And I think that's the point as well. There's so many different angles and ways to get into tech. And it's so important that we try and we have that representation. But it's really like a big topic, and you can learn depending on where your interests really lie.
Mm-hmm. I think that's so amazing. I think I agree with you in the aspect that there's so many different ways that you can navigate yourself into this. And it goes for a lot of things in life. It's not just black and white. It's not as if you have to do coding as a degree or anything like that in order to get into. And I think it's really important that we keep putting that message out there for young girls and just everyone in general to understand the fact that you don't have to be necessarily good at maths or engineering or coding. You can be a creative and go into marketing or product design, and there's so many other fields that you can get into.
Yeah,
definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the women we've previously spoken to as well, and obviously the podcast that we do, obviously we spoke to Jahanara, who's like the president of Pasha, which is this big organization in Pakistan, which helps women sort of pursue their ideas and make it a reality, which is so amazing. And obviously we recently spoke to Camilla Ali Kmet, who is an engineer at a leading industry in tech in London. And I feel for these women, from these women, we've learned that it's not always easy. And everyone just thinks that, like you said, tech is just like the coding or a certain way. But obviously there's so much more. And all these women are doing so many different things in tech and amazing life-changing things. And personally, I think today tech has gotten a lot easier for girls, but obviously there are still some barriers, and it's something that we consciously want to keep focusing on as we go forward. And obviously it's something that we want to keep going forward with until there is significant change. And which is what I want to ask you, Sarah, is if you look back on what you have been through and your journey, have you found any challenges, or have you been through any struggles, or have you just been a straight road and it's been easy?
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah.
No, yeah, definitely faced a lot of struggles. And I think, you know, just for like some context, I think in terms of investments into, you know, female-led businesses and female-led social enterprises, there's still a huge gap. I think the statistic is at the moment is around 2% of the venture capital funding goes to female-led businesses. So we're really, you know, behind still. It's definitely it's definitely getting better. There's a lot of talk, and I think that's a really important step. You know, there's so much awareness, and there's really, we have to keep the narrative going and get into like the, you know, the norm, that this should be the norm, and then we can like see a little bit more changes. And I think I was reading some studies about how women were assessed, so how female businesses were assessed compared to male-led businesses. And there's definitely still these biases. So women have to, were asked more questions, had to prove, like, for example, more traction, or maybe more revenue than their male counterparts. So we still have those different standards, and that's definitely, we're definitely requiring more of women. So that's like in a way, that's like the kind of backdrop. And I think for me, it's shown that it's not always been like that at all. But you know, what we're doing at IMI is we've made a battery powered watch that can learn and track your menstrual cycle. So our watch doesn't connect with an app, and it also has like a 15 to 18 month battery life. And but you know, it's all about female health. So this was kind of a barrier in itself, really, talking to either potential investors or partners. And it's it's kind of like in a way, it goes to like a two-step process. You kind of have to prove that you know what you're doing in terms of leading a company. And then you have to prove that this is a big enough problem to solve, because the knowledge of female health is so low amongst both women and men that it's a two-step thing. So I had a lot of that. I mean, I still do, but especially near the beginning, when maybe I didn't have as much confidence when I was going into these meetings, that there was really a lot of these questions around like, well, is this a big enough problem? And I was thinking in my head, like, well, every woman menstruates, you know, like, yeah, this is a huge, huge problem that we don't know about it, considering, you know, half the population thereabouts. And I kind of didn't really know how to answer some of these times, because I just thought, how can you even say? And then there were some questions around like, well, why is it even important? You know, why do women need to track their menstrual cycle? And again, it would really throw me at the beginning, because I was thinking like, well, you know, the only reason you exist is because of a menstrual cycle. So how can it not be an important thing? Like, it's, you know, it's how we reproduce. So it was difficult in that sense. And I would sometimes get so frustrated seeing all these other, like, you know, kind of up and coming tech companies that were doing like, you know, really cool things, but not to the same, like they weren't kind of like, their target market wasn't, you know, women everywhere. And of course I'm biased in that sense of really wanting to focus on women. But it really bugged me of like, why isn't this coming across? Why can't I say this? And I actually took quite a lot of time to reflect on that and to think like, what am I not communicating? Like, to understand more the level where we're at, and then be like, okay, I need to say it in this way, or I need to communicate things in this way. I need to use this type of language in order to really like land, in order for my, like, what I was trying to say to land. So yeah, it's definitely been a lot of learnings, and really not as straightforward as I would have hoped. But, you know, hopefully that's also helped me as well, and really, I don't know, had some benefit as well, I think, along the way.
No, I think it's really cool that you just sort of talk about the fact that it wasn't always easy, and there were moments where you were unsure of what you were really doing. But I think as long as we stand for what we believe in and realize that we're not going to stop until sort of the change is made, I think that is the most important thing. And then I think once you sort of it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Once you tell yourself, I can do this, I think that sort of radiates to others and shows the confidence. So it's really cool. Yeah,
I agree. And I was also going to say that I think as well, the fact that you're talking about like how you faced your struggles and then there obviously was some biases towards other companies and stuff. Like me, I'm a student full time, but I also work full time. And being a young woman just in a workspace in general, there are points where I think to myself, I'm giving you these ideas, I'm putting in so much effort, I'm working so hard, and there's a lack of recognition there, and there's a lack of being taken seriously sometimes at points. And I think it's a struggle because it's like I'm doing my best, I keep trying my hardest, but it's like I keep getting pushed back and like not taken seriously, and it's very disheartening at times. So if there is any advice you can give me, I'd be more than appreciative to take it on.
Yeah, I don't know. I really, it really resonates with me, like what you say. And I think, I don't know, I think that's such a beautiful part of a lot of women, you know, this really empathetic sense and being like, how can we do this better? How can I help to improve? And it's incredible. It's like this ability to kind of problem solve, you know, if you think about it, seeing something in front of you and thinking like, how can we make this better, or how can we make this better for everyone and more efficient, and yeah, not getting the recognition is it really sucks. It really sucks. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's really good to be vocal about it, and there's a fine line because you kind of don't want to be like, you know, seeking it the whole time and people thinking that that's what all you want, because it's not, that's not the reason you're doing it. But it's unfair as well that then especially when someone takes it on as their own thing, when you've been the one kind of grafting and putting in all the hard work. Yeah. I'm not sure I have answers.
I think that sorry.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that we will kind of have to work on, the fact that we're all struggling in our own ways. And just solidarity and support is more than enough.
Yeah. And I think it's like, it's also important to own these things, you know, like I said, that obviously there's a fine line between being seen as something. And I think that's also a very like female worry, you know, that we're seen as like this, or people, I don't know, to stereotype you in that sense. But it is important to own it, you know, really own like, no, I did this, and that's that, and have that like confidence. And I don't mean confidence in the sense of having the loudest voice. That's not it at all. It's just kind of owning what you're doing and being really sure of it. I think that's, you know, that's a lovely trait.
Yeah, definitely. And I think nowadays we hear a lot about tech for good and making tech appropriate for all, which is obviously, you know, designing for those who are in lower resource communities. And I think that is also really important to like make sure that everyone is included. And Sarah, do you think that this sector is growing in the future? And is this something that could become a bigger initiative? Or...
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think it's really creative. I think it also has, I see a lot of women going into this space of leading companies, especially in the health sector, and really wanting to have that impact as well, that social impact, and designing for it rather than it being just, you know, an add-on, like every, you know, oh, we'll donate some money at the end, or if we can, or something like this. It's really becoming part of the ethos and part of the mission. And it's attractive. I think it's attractive to people who want to come and work there and want to really give this social purpose. And I think that it's important so that it is impactful in that sense. Like when we were designing our watch, you know, there were so many things it could not be. It could not be connected to an app. It could not be having to charge. It can't be expensive. It has to look good. It has to be really simple. So it was, again, like that whole problem solving and really create something that you love as well. and that can also be just bigger than you, bigger than other things. And I think that's where women have just an absolute superpower as well, that creativity and that just drive, to kind of do more and to make a real impact in the world. It's an exciting time for that.
Yeah, definitely. It's all about just making women the future leaders of today and just sort of pushing for that. And I think until we keep pushing, hopefully we can just break some barriers and continue with women in tech.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think as well, like what you're doing is so inspirational in the sense that you're a woman, you're creating a product for women. I'm sure you have a team of strong women as well on board with you. And that's the exact same thing that this cohort is all about, that we've started. We are young women, we are co-founders, we're below the age of 20, like it's quite a lot of responsibility, but we're young women and we have young women who are part of this program, and we're trying to pave change and a path for young women. And I think it's like this female dominated industry that we're trying to create, where it can be competitive, but in the best way. We push each other forward, where we have solidarity for each other, we're understanding and compassionate. I think it's so important that we see role models like you, and everyone else that we've had the pleasure of speaking to on our podcast, just doing what they can and making more impact for like-minded women. I just
Definitely.
think
it's amazing. It's a really exciting thing. And I mean, I just wanted to like ask a final question to you two of, what would you want to see in the future? How do you want, I know you guys have also experienced your own struggles. And I think like in 2030, what would you like to see the landscape being?
Well, obviously I want to see, what an ideal future for me, like waking up on the 1st of January 2030 sort of scenario would be obviously a future where where the amount of girls in tech obviously is significantly greater than it is at the moment. And I am definitely certain that could definitely be something that is there, because tech is always evolving and we have seen significant change in the amount of women in tech sector. So if we just continue, and I think if people just carry on and not get disheartened, because I think that sometimes, even with Aaliyah and myself, I think in our cohort, it's just always quite disheartening when things don't go the way you want and when you've put a lot of effort into things. And I think when you're just like striving for that constantly and then sometimes it doesn't work out the way you want, you're like, oh, is what I'm doing really making a change? But like, it's not all about the big changes, like you've said as well. It's like always chipping away at the smaller things. And I think personally, like for the future, I would have hoped that through Girl 2030, we would have empowered and inspired enough women to where there were no more barriers in tech. Yeah, that would be the ideal scenario.
I think Ikra summed that up pretty well. I think that's the ideal place that we want to get to. I think personally for me, I don't want this to just be about tech. I know that that's the focus of our cohort and of this conversation. However, I do believe that across the board, there needs to be change. There needs to be more empowerment for women, more opportunities. There needs to be a sense of equality there. And I want all the women and young girls listening right now to understand the fact that we will get there. And we need to keep making this collective change, but we will get there. And we need to keep pushing as hard as we can, even the little things. Don't stop, because it is making a change somewhere, somehow.
Yeah. And I think what can sometimes happen is that us women, even though we're quite empathetic, we're also very strong-minded people at times. And I think that sometimes when all women are together, I think that that can sort of reflect in some arguments or disagreements. And I think the main, like tech and everything, but I think like the main focus even of Girl 2030 is just making a space where women are always uplifting each other. Because if we're just always reinforcing that idea that we are each other's friends and motivators, I think we don't need anyone else. And I think that will be the real change and success of women in tech or just in society.
Yeah. Collaboration, not competition.
Definitely. Yeah. Just that idea of enforcing that. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it. And thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Sarah, for taking the time to answer our questions and motivate us. And young girls from and thank you for all the young girls for listening, and those change makers from business, government, and civil society. We hope that we've inspired you to engage young women and inspire them to dream big. You can keep up with us on our website, which is girl2030.org, and our Instagram, which is girlsattack2030, and to get involved in Girls 2030 and create a world where we are all change makers and we are constantly breaking barriers for girls in tech. Thank you all for joining us at this UN Leaders Summit, and we hope to see you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.